The twin suns of Kragath Prime hung high in the purple-tinted sky, their heat beating down on the crystalline forest below. 9-year-old Lily Walker wiped sweat from her forehead as she carefully placed another glowing mineral sample into her collection bag. The crystals chimed softly as they clinked together, a sound that always made her smile. Her father, Ben Walker, had told her at least a dozen times this morning not to wander past the research station's safety markers. But Lily had her father's curious nature. She just had to see what was beyond that next ridge, had to collect just one more sample. Besides, she'd been careful. She had her emergency beacon, her water flask, and she knew the way back. The forest was beautiful in a strange, alien way. The trees weren't really trees at all, but tall crystalline formations that grew from the ground and branched out like frozen lightning. They hummed when the wind blew through them, creating an eerie music that made Lily's skin prickle. The ferns glowed with a soft blue light, illuminating the shadowy spaces between the crystal trees. That's when she heard it. The sound cut through the forest's melody like a knife. It wasn't quite a roar and it wasn't quite a scream. It was something in between, something that made every hair on Lily's body stand straight up. The sound was raw and desperate, filled with an agony so pure it made her chest hurt. She should have turned around. She should have run back to the station. But something in that terrible sound pulled at her, and before she knew what she was doing, Lily was pushing through the glowing ferns toward the source of the noise. When she broke through into a small clearing, Lily's legs locked up and refused to move. A Scarix lay in the dirt before her. The creature was enormous even though it was young. 20 feet of pure nightmare, covered in scales so black they seemed to absorb the light around them. Its claws were each as long as Lily's forearm, razor-sharp and designed to tear through metal. The colonists had shown her pictures during the safety briefings. They told the stories in hushed, frightened voices. 3 human settlements wiped out. Hundreds of people killed. The Galactic Council had put out warnings across every communication channel. Scarix were Class 9 predators, the most dangerous creatures in this entire sector of space. Lily had nightmares about them sometimes. But right now, watching this creature thrash weakly in the dirt, all she felt was pity. A massive thorn spike as thick as her arm and covered in barbs like fishhooks, had somehow gotten lodged deep inside the Scarix's left nostril. The area around the wound had turned a dark, ugly purple. Black blood, thick and oily looking, dripped steadily from the injury. The creature's breathing sounded wet and wrong, coming in desperate, wheezing gasps that made Lily wince. The Scarix's eyes were huge, each one bigger than a dinner plate, and they rolled in its head with such obvious pain that Lily forgot to be afraid. Those eyes were a burning amber color like molten gold, and right now they were filled with nothing but suffering. Every survival instinct Lily possessed screamed at her to turn around and run. Her heart hammered so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her hands shook. Her mouth went dry. But she took a step forward anyway. "Hey," Lily said, her voice coming out as barely a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Hey there. It's okay. I can help you." The Scarix's massive head swung toward her with frightening speed. Those burning amber eyes locked onto her tiny human form. Its mouth cracked open just slightly and Lily saw teeth. So many teeth. Each one was the size of a kitchen knife, and behind them, deep in the creature's throat, she could see the faint orange glow of superheated plasma building. One breath. That's all it would take. One blast of that plasma breath and Lily would be nothing but ash. "I know it hurts," Lily said, raising her hands slowly to show her empty palms. Her voice shook but she kept talking. "I'm going to help you, okay? Just please don't eat me." For what felt like forever, nothing happened. The Scarix stared at her with those huge, pain-filled eyes. Lily could see its internal struggle, could see it trying to decide if this tiny creature was a threat or something else. Then, so slowly it seemed impossible for something so large, the Scarix lowered its head to the ground. Its breathing was still labored and painful, but the creature went completely still. Waiting. Somehow, impossibly, it was trusting her. Lily's legs trembled as she took one step forward, then another. She pulled her father's field tools from her belt with shaking hands. The multi-tool felt heavy and useless compared to the massive spike embedded in the creature's face. The thorn spike was lodged deep and she could see how the barbs had caught in the flesh. Nature had designed these things to be nearly impossible to remove. The purple discoloration around the wound was spreading. If the thorn wasn't removed soon, the infection would kill this magnificent creature. "This is really going to hurt," Lily said softly, wrapping both hands around the base of the thorn. "I'm so sorry." She pulled with all her strength. The Scarix's entire body went rigid. Its claws dug into the earth, gouging deep furrows in the dirt. A rumble built in its chest, deep and terrible, the kind of sound that said violence was coming. Lily's instinct screamed at her to let go and run. But she didn't. Almost there, she whispered through her tears. Fear tears mixed with effort tears streamed down her face. Almost got it, just a little more. The thorn came free with a horrible wet sucking sound that Lily would hear in her dreams for years. Black blood gushed from the wound. Lily stumbled backward, still clutching the wicked barbed spike in her hands. The Scarix rose to its full height. Standing up, the creature was even more massive than Lily had realized. It towered over her like a living mountain, wings spreading wide enough to cast the entire clearing in shadow. This close, Lily could feel the heat radiating from its scales, could smell something like hot metal and smoke. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, absolutely certain that these would be her last moments. She'd helped the creature, sure, but it was still a predator. Still a monster from every horror story the colonists told their children. But death didn't come. Instead, Lily felt warmth spreading across her skin. She cracked one eye open and saw the Scarix lowering its massive head until its snout hovered just inches from her face. The creature was so close that Lily could see herself reflected in those burning amber eyes. Then something strange happened. A tingling sensation spread across the back of Lily's hand, not painful but not quite comfortable either. It felt like tiny sparks of electricity dancing across her skin. When she looked down, her breath caught. A mark had appeared on her hand, glowing with soft blue-white light. It looked like a stylized flame, beautiful and intricate. The Scarix made a sound. Not a roar or a growl, but something almost gentle. It sounded like a purr mixed with distant thunder, like a summer storm heard from far away. Then the creature spread its wings wide. With a powerful downward thrust that sent dirt and leaves swirling around Lily, the Scarix launched itself into the sky. Lily watched, neck craned back, as the massive predator soared over the crystalline forest and disappeared beyond the distant mountain peaks. Lily stood alone in the clearing, her heart still pounding, staring at the glowing mark on her hand. The light pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. She had absolutely no idea what she had just done. 4 months went by, and Lily almost forgot about that strange day in the forest. Almost. Life at the research station fell back into its normal rhythm. Her father, Ben Walker, spent his days cataloging the weird and wonderful plants that grew on Kragath Prime. Lily helped him press samples, label specimens, and sometimes she'd sit on the observation deck and stare up at the stars, wondering what other incredible things were out there waiting to be discovered. The glowing mark on her hand had faded over time. Now it was just a faint shimmer, barely visible unless the light hit it just right. Some days Lily wondered if she'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe she'd gotten heatstroke that day. Maybe the encounter with the Scarix had been nothing more than a fever dream brought on by too much sun and not enough water. But deep down she knew it had been real. Then everything changed in a single morning. Lily was eating breakfast when the alarms started blaring. The emergency sirens that they tested once a month but had never actually used. The sound was so loud and so sudden that Lily dropped her spoon, and it clattered against her bowl. Ben's face went white as he stared at his data pad. The message scrolling across the screen made his hands shake. Warships had appeared in orbit. Massive vessels that bristled with enough weapons to crack a planet in half if they wanted to. They belonged to the Krellians, a military empire that had conquered dozens of worlds across the sector of space. The message they broadcast was simple and brutal. Humanity had 48 hours to pack up and leave Kragath Prime. The planet belonged to the Krellian sovereignty now. They claimed it by right of conquest and they weren't asking permission. The colony's leaders immediately contacted the Galactic Council, hoping for help, praying for some kind of intervention. Surely the older, more established civilizations would step in. Surely someone would tell the Krellians they couldn't just take inhabited planets whenever they felt like it. The Galactic Council's response arrived within hours, and it crushed every hope the colonists had. Humanity has no registered claim to the Kragath system, the alien diplomats announced in their cold, formal voices. The Krellian sovereignty's petition for territorial rights takes precedence. All human personnel must evacuate immediately. Lily watched her father read the message over and over, as if reading it enough times would somehow change the words. His face looked older somehow, tired in a way she'd never seen before. They're just going to let them take it? Lily asked quietly. Just like that. Ben nodded slowly, unable to meet her eyes. We're newcomers out here, sweetheart. The Krellians have been part of the galactic community for thousands of years. We've been here for, what, 20 years? 30? He laughed, but it was a bitter sound. We don't matter to them. We're just the new kids who wandered into the wrong neighborhood. The colony had 3,000 people. Scientists like her father who'd dedicated their lives to understanding this world. Engineers who'd built the habitats and power systems. Families who'd left everything behind on Earth to start fresh on a new planet. Children who'd been born here and had never even seen humanity's homeworld. None of that mattered to the galaxy's ancient, powerful civilizations. Humans were unimportant. Disposable. Easy to ignore. "We're not fighters," Ben said quietly as he started pulling their belongings off shelves and stuffing them into emergency bags. "We can't stand against a military empire, Lily. We're scientists, not soldiers." But the Krellians didn't even give them the full 48 hours. The attack came at dawn the next day, when the twin suns were just starting to paint the sky purple and orange. Lily woke to the sound of explosions and screaming. Dropships tore through the atmosphere like falling meteors, their engines screaming loud enough to hurt. They deployed soldiers across the colony, alien warriors in heavy armor carrying weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. But the soldiers weren't even the worst part. Battle mechs followed them down. Machines 3 stories tall, armed with plasma cannons that glowed with deadly heat. Their metal feet crushed buildings as they walked, turning homes and laboratories into rubble. The message was crystal clear. Leave now or die trying to stay. Ben grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her toward the emergency bunker. They ran through streets filled with smoke and chaos, past neighbors who were doing the same desperate sprint toward safety. They were maybe 50 yards from the bunker entrance when a Krellian battle mech rounded the corner ahead of them. The machine was enormous up close, its weapons already powering up with a high-pitched whine that made Lily's teeth hurt. She could see the glow building in the cannon barrels, could feel the heat radiating from the charging weapons. The pilot's voice boomed through external speakers, amplified and emotionless. "Halt, humans. Resistance is punished by immediate." The mark on Lily's hand exploded with light. She gasped as warmth flooded through her entire body, racing up her arm and spreading through her chest. The mark she'd almost forgotten about blazed with blue-white brilliance so bright it hurt to look at. A shadow fell over them, blocking out both suns. The Krellian pilot's voice cut off mid-sentence. He barely had time to look up before 20 tons of pure fury crashed down on his battle mech from above. The Scarix hit the machine like a meteor. Lily's Scarix. The creature she'd helped 4 months ago. Those obsidian-black scales gleamed in the morning light as massive claws tore into advanced military technology like it was made of paper. The mech's armor, designed to withstand plasma fire and explosives, crumpled under the Scarix's assault. In seconds, the war machine was nothing but twisted scrap metal. When Krellian soldiers tried to flank the creature, tried to bring it down with their energy weapons, the Scarix moved with terrifying speed and precision. Its tail swept them aside like toys. Its plasma breath melted their weapons before they could fire. It was beautiful and horrible all at once. But here was the part that made Lily's breath catch in her throat. The part that would make scientists question everything they thought they knew. The Scarix never moved more than 10 feet away from her. It fought like a living shield, always keeping its massive body between Lily and any threat. When an explosion went off nearby and Lily flinched, the creature immediately curled its wings around her, blocking the blast and the debris. When Ben tried to pull her toward the bunker, the Scarix moved with them, its huge head constantly turning, always watching, always guarding. More Krellian forces were converging on their position now. Dozens of soldiers, more battle mechs, all thinking they could overwhelm one creature through sheer numbers. The Scarix raised its head and released a call. The sound was unlike anything Lily had ever heard. It echoed across the valley, shaking windows in their frames and making the ground vibrate beneath her feet. It was powerful enough to rattle her bones, loud enough to drown out the sounds of battle. But it wasn't a roar of rage or a scream of challenge. It was a summons. And from every direction, from the mountains and forests, from caves and cliffs all across Kragath Prime, more Scarix answered the call. The Krellian assault stopped dead in its tracks. Their tactical computers, designed to calculate threats and predict battle outcomes, couldn't make sense of what they were seeing. A dozen Scarix swept down on the colony like a storm. But they weren't attacking the humans. They were defending them. The creatures moved like they'd been working together their whole lives. They communicated through deep, rumbling calls that humans couldn't quite hear but could feel in their chests. The Scarix flanked Krellian positions with military precision, working together to take down battle mechs and scatter soldier formations. They dismantled the invasion force with an efficiency that looked almost surgical. Lily's Scarix, the one she'd been quietly calling Ash in her head, never strayed more than a few feet from her side. The creature had grown massive in the 4 months since their first meeting. Its scales gleamed like polished black glass, and red patterns ran through the black like veins of living lava flowing just beneath the surface. Standing next to Ash made Lily feel tiny, but she'd never felt safer in her life. Ben watched everything from behind Ash's protective bulk, his scientist's brain struggling to process what his eyes were showing him. This shouldn't be possible, he said, more to himself than to Lily. They're territorial apex predators. Every study we've done says they don't cooperate with each other. They definitely don't protect other species. It goes against every behavioral pattern we've documented. But they were doing exactly that. And they were doing it because of Lily. Inside one of the Krellian dropships, Commander Torvik slammed his fist against the console. He'd been fighting wars for 30 years, had conquered a dozen planets, and he'd never seen anything like this. He opened a channel to the human colony's communication network, his voice tight with frustration. "What sorcery is this?" he demanded. "What weapon have you deployed against us?" Director James Carter, the colony's leader, stood in the command center staring at the security feeds. He watched Lily sitting calmly beside the massive Scarix, watched the ring of deadly predators that had formed a protective circle around the entire colony. He looked bewildered as he activated his transmitter to respond. "It's not a weapon, Commander," Carter said slowly, like he couldn't quite believe his own words. "It's a 9-year-old girl who did something kind." The communication channel went silent for a long moment. Then Torvik's voice came back, sharp with disbelief. "Impossible. The Scarix cannot be tamed. Our intelligence reports clearly state they are untamable, unteachable, and will attack any sentient species on sight." "Your intelligence was wrong," Carter interrupted. His eyes never left the screen showing Lily and Ash. "They're not tamed, Commander. They're paying back a debt. They're honoring something." The battle dragged on for 3 more hours. The Krellians threw everything they had at the colony. Airstrikes screamed down from orbit. Artillery shells exploded against hastily erected shields. Elite commando units tried infiltration tactics. None of it worked. The Scarix were simply too fast, too powerful, and too coordinated. Even worse for the Krellians, every new attack seemed to draw more Scarix out of the wilderness. Every aggressive move brought reinforcements that the invaders couldn't handle. By the time the twin suns started to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, the Krellian forces were retreating to their dropships. Their armor was scorched and dented. Their war machines were scrap metal. And they'd lost hundreds of soldiers to creatures that weren't supposed to be able to work together. Lily sat with her back against Ash's side, feeling the warmth radiating from those incredible scales. The creature's breathing had slowed to a deep, steady rhythm that was almost peaceful. She could feel Ash's chest rising and falling like slow ocean waves. When she reached up to touch the scales, Ash shifted that massive head and gently nuzzled her shoulder. The gesture was so careful, so tender, that it made Lily's throat tight with emotion. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered to her friend. "Why are you protecting us?" Ash's amber eyes caught the fading sunlight and seemed to glow from within. The creature made a low sound deep in its chest. It wasn't threatening at all. It was almost tender, like the purr of some enormous cat. Then Ash did something that made everyone watching gasp. The great predator laid down beside Lily, carefully folding its wings and positioning itself so she could lean against its warm side. This creature had torn through military hardware like it was made of cardboard, and now it was serving as a comfortable pillow for a human child. Ben approached slowly, his hands shaking slightly. "Lily, that mark on your hand. When did it stop glowing?" Lily glanced down at her hand. The symbol had faded completely, leaving just normal skin. "About an hour ago, I think." "Why?" "Because that mark," Ben said, and his voice was filled with wonder and a touch of fear, "is a Scarix protection bond. I've read about them in ancient alien texts that most scientists thought were just myths. Legends. The old stories said that Scarix would mark those who showed them great mercy or saved their lives. It's supposed to be a debt that can never be fully repaid. But I just pulled out a thorn," Lily said quietly. "That's all I did." "You did more than that," Director Carter said, walking up to join them. He looked at Lily with a mixture of wonder and something like fear. "You showed compassion to something the entire galaxy has written off as a monster. You gave mercy when you could have saved yourself and run away. And apparently—" He turned to look at the dozen Scarix perched around the colony's perimeter like living gargoyles. "Apparently that means everything to them." High above in orbit, the Krellian warships hung motionless in space. Commander Torvik had a decision to make. He could retreat and return home in disgrace, his reputation as an unbeatable commander shattered. Or he could try again tomorrow and risk losing his entire invasion force to creatures that conventional weapons couldn't kill. Lily didn't know it yet, but her simple act of kindness 4 months ago had just changed galactic politics forever. The news exploded across the galactic network faster than anyone could have imagined. Human child forms bond with Class 9 predator species. Krellian invasion force defeated by Scarix defenders. Impossible alliance discovered on Kragath Prime. The headlines flashed across millions of screens throughout known space. Within 48 hours, Kragath Prime's orbit was crowded with ships. But these weren't warships coming to threaten or conquer. These were science vessels, research ships from a dozen different species, all desperate to understand what had happened. Their sensors were trained constantly on the colony below and on the Scarix that now patrolled openly around the human settlement like guards on duty. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered in the massive council chamber, their conversations buzzing with speculation and disbelief. Ambassador Velith of the Turellian Consortium stood to address the assembly. "This changes everything we thought we knew," he declared, his translator making his alien speech understandable to all present. "If humans can bond with Scarix, they possess diplomatic capabilities we never anticipated. They may be more important than we realized." Another delegate rose from their seat, gesturing dismissively. "Or it's nothing but a fluke. One child. One creature. That's hardly evidence of anything significant. It could be a complete accident, a one-time event that will never happen again." The main view screen suddenly cut to live footage being broadcast from Kragath Prime. The entire chamber fell silent as they watched. Lily stood in the colony's main square, completely relaxed and calm. 17 Scarix surrounded her, their massive forms arranged in a protective circle that created a living fortress of obsidian scales and deadly power. The cameras zoomed in just as Lily reached out casually and touched Ash's snout. The enormous predator lowered its head and closed its eyes. The expression on its face, impossible as it seemed, looked peaceful. Content. Almost happy. Nobody in the council chamber said a word for a long moment. "That," Ambassador Velith said softly into the silence, "is not a fluke." Meanwhile, back on Kragath Prime, Lily was discovering that her life had changed in ways she never could have imagined. Scientists from a dozen different species were practically begging for samples. They wanted to study her, to study Ash, to understand the bond between them. Diplomats lined up requesting interviews, wanting to know every detail of that day in the forest. The questions never seemed to stop. Most surprising of all, the Krellians sent a formal envoy requesting a meeting. But they didn't want to meet with Director Carter or any of the colony's leaders. They wanted to meet with Lily, a 9-year-old girl. Ben was protective in a way Lily had never seen before. He limited who could talk to his daughter and for how long. He made sure she got breaks, made sure she wasn't overwhelmed by all the attention. But even he couldn't deny that something massive was happening. "They want to understand the bond," Ben explained to Lily one evening over dinner. "Every single attempt to study the Scarix has ended in disaster. Ships destroyed. Research teams killed. Entire expeditions lost. But you just walked up to one and helped it. And it remembered. It came back to protect you." "Ash isn't an it," Lily said quietly, pushing food around her plate. "He's a he. I can tell." Ben stopped eating and stared at his daughter. "You can tell? How can you possibly know that?" Lily shrugged, struggling to put it into words. "I just know. The same way I know when he's hungry or when something's bothering him or when he's happy. It's like I can feel what he's feeling. Not exactly the same as what I feel, but close enough that I understand." That simple statement sent the xenobiologists into an absolute frenzy. Empathic bonds between different species had been documented before, yes, but never across such a massive genetic divide. Humans and Scarix had evolved on completely different worlds, under different suns, in different parts of the galaxy. There was no biological reason whatsoever that they should be able to communicate, much less understand each other's emotions. Yet somehow they did. The Krellian envoy arrived 3 days after the battle. Commander Torvik himself came down to the planet's surface, deliberately unarmed and flanked by nervous-looking diplomats. Lily met them in the colony square, with Ash looming behind her like a living mountain of scales and power. What happened next shocked everyone watching. Torvik knelt. It was a gesture of deep respect in Krellian culture, one that commanders rarely gave to anyone. "Miss Walker," he said formally, his voice carrying across the square. "I come to offer a sincere apology. The Krellian sovereignty acted with haste and poor judgment. We severely underestimated humanity's unique qualities." Lily looked up at the massive alien warrior, her young face serious. "You tried to kill us. You tried to kill my dad." "Yes," Torvik admitted without hesitation. And your guardian made it abundantly clear that was a terrible mistake. He glanced at Ash, whose burning amber eyes tracked his every tiny movement. We formally withdraw our territorial claim to Kragath Prime. The planet belongs to humanity. Director Carter stepped forward, unable to hide his surprise. Just like that? You're simply giving up? We're being practical, Torvik said bluntly. Fighting Scarix is suicide under the best circumstances. Fighting Scarix who are protecting someone they've bonded to? That's not war, Director. That's extinction. We would lose every soldier we sent down here. He looked back at Lily. Your people have proven something important to the galaxy. You've earned your place here. After the Krellians left, Lily sat with her father on the observation deck, watching the twin suns set over the crystalline forest. Ash lay beside them, his massive presence somehow more comforting than frightening. What happens now? Lily asked quietly. Ben put his arm around his daughter and pulled her close. Now you've given humanity something we desperately needed. Proof that we belong out here among the stars. Proof that we can make friends in the most unexpected places. He smiled down at her. You did that, Lily. Just by choosing to be kind when you could have walked away. Lily leaned against Ash's warm side and smiled. Being kind was easy. It was just the right thing to do. She still didn't understand why everyone was making such a huge deal about it. 6 months had passed since the Krellian forces retreated in defeat, and Kragath Prime looked like a completely different world. The colony had grown beyond anyone's wildest dreams. What started as a struggling outpost of 3,000 hopeful settlers had exploded into a thriving community of over 10,000 people. New structures rose from the purple soil every week. Gleaming research facilities, comfortable living quarters, schools for the growing number of children, and even a small park with trees imported from Earth. The colony that had nearly been destroyed was now flourishing. The Galactic Council had done something unprecedented. They granted humanity full territorial rights, not just to Kragath Prime itself, but to the entire star system. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid. It was a gift worth trillions in resources and strategic position. Humans, the species that had been dismissed as unimportant newcomers just months ago, suddenly owned an entire system in a prime location. Ships arrived almost daily now from every corner of known space. Some brought scientists hoping to study what everyone was calling the impossible bond. Others came with trade deals, wanting to establish relationships with the species that had somehow befriended the galaxy's most feared predators. A few came simply out of curiosity, wanting to see the miracle with their own eyes. But the real changes, the ones that mattered most, ran much deeper than politics and territory. Lily walked through the new research campus with Ash moving quietly beside her. Even after 6 months, the sight still made visiting aliens stop dead in their tracks and stare. A human child, barely 10 years old, walking casually next to a creature that could reduce a battle tank to scrap metal. The pair moved through the campus like it was the most natural thing in the world, which to Lily, it was. The Scarix weren't hiding in the wilderness anymore, fearful and isolated. They'd become part of the colony in ways that defied every scientific prediction. Some patrolled the perimeter, their sharp eyes watching for threats. Others seemed content to simply exist near the humans, observing daily life with those intelligent amber eyes. A few had even started helping with heavy construction work, their incredible strength making short work of tasks that would have taken humans days. Dr. Rachel Hughes, the colony's lead xenobiologist, had dedicated the past 6 months to studying what had happened. She gave presentations regularly to packed audiences, both in person and broadcast across the galaxy. Her findings were revolutionizing everything scientists thought they knew about interspecies relations. We were completely wrong about them, Rachel explained during one particularly well-attended lecture. Her voice carried equal parts excitement and embarrassment. We looked at the Scarix and saw only monsters, only danger, only death. We never stopped to consider that they might be capable of complex emotions. That they could feel loyalty, friendship, even love. We judged them entirely based on our fear instead of trying to understand who they really were. The months of research had revealed something profound. Scarix didn't bond easily or frequently. It might happen once in their entire lifetime if it happened at all. But when a Scarix did choose to form a bond, it was absolute and unbreakable. Ash would die to protect Lily without a moment's hesitation. That much was obvious to anyone who watched them together. But the bond wasn't one-sided, and that's what made it truly special. Lily could sense Ash's emotions like they were her own. She knew when he was happy, when something was bothering him, when he was hungry or tired or worried. She couldn't hear his thoughts and words exactly, but she understood him in ways that went beyond language. And through Ash she'd formed connections with his entire clan. The other Scarix treated her with a gentleness that seemed impossible for creatures so powerful. "It's like you're a living bridge," Ben explained to his daughter one evening as they watched the sunset from their favorite spot. "Between humanity and a species we could never have reached on our own. You connected two worlds that everyone said were impossible to connect." But Lily didn't spend much time thinking about the politics or the science or the historical significance. Those things felt distant and abstract. What mattered to her was much simpler. Ash was her friend. The giant Scarix had taught her how to climb the crystalline cliffs that surrounded the colony, using his body as a stepping stone to reach places she could never get to alone. Lily had taught Ash how to play fetch with specially designed titanium balls that wouldn't break under his powerful jaws. They'd spent countless hours just sitting together in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out, two beings from completely different worlds who'd found common ground in the simplest of acts. The Galactic Council sent ambassadors regularly now, but they didn't come to negotiate with Director Carter or the other colony leaders. They came to learn from Lily. A 10-year-old girl had somehow become one of the most influential figures in the galaxy, not through military power or political maneuvering, but simply by being kind. "How do we establish bonds with other resistant species?" Ambassador Velith asked during one of his frequent visits. He'd made the journey from his home world 4 times now, always with the same question. "What's the secret? What's the technique?" Lily gave him the same answer she always did, simple and honest in a way that only a child could be. "You just try being nice to them. Really genuinely nice. Not because you want something from them or because you're trying to manipulate them, but because it's the right thing to do. Because everyone deserves kindness." The alien diplomats found this answer frustratingly simple. They wanted complex protocols, detailed strategies, step-by-step instructions. They couldn't accept that the answer really was just basic kindness. Yet they couldn't argue with the results. 3 other colonists had formed bonds with Scarix in the months since Lily's first encounter. The connections weren't as deep or strong as hers and Ash's, but they were real and growing. And the pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Approach with genuine compassion, offer help without expecting anything in return, and the Scarix responded. That night, after all the visitors had left and the colony had settled into peaceful quiet, Lily and Ash climbed to their favorite cliff. They sat together looking out over the lights of the growing settlement below while overhead, unfamiliar constellations blazed in the alien sky. Ash spread one massive wing over Lily like a living blanket, warm and protective. Through their bond, she felt his contentment, his happiness, his absolute certainty that he was exactly where he belonged. Lily leaned against her friend's warm side and smiled. She'd pulled a thorn from a dragon's nose, and somehow that simple act had changed everything.